in Kapili. And the weather is getting colder. So dress carefully when you come to the temple. Thời tiết nó lạnh rồi, thành ra cái gì mặc áo cẩn thận, ấm hơn một tí khi đi chùa. It's only get worse because our temple we don't use any heater. Càng ngày nó càng lạnh thêm tại vì cái chùa này không có mấy sưởi. Not because any particular reason, we just don't have any heater. We are grandfathered in, so by code nowadays you need to have some heating system for health reasons. But since this temple was built a long time ago, we are exempted from that. Đúng theo được bây giờ thì you can open that door because if you let the sun in, it warms it a little bit more, but that's okay too. Theo lúc thì phải có máy sưởi, nhưng tại cái chùa này xây lâu rồi thành ra không có máy sưởi. So the advantage is that the bad news is that it's not insulated, it's not well insulated, and it has no heating whatsoever. So in the winter, it gets real cold. It can get pretty cold. Cái Phật điện này cũ không có đủ cái insulation, không lạnh. So you be careful when you come to the temple. Dress warmly, please. Quý vị đến chùa cho nên cẩn thận. In particular, when you sit in the winter time, make sure your legs are well covered. Nhất là mùa đông đó, vì mùa đông, mùa thiền mùa đông đó, nhớ là cái chân phải mặc cho nó che cho nó ấm. In particular, in the Chan halls, when you see when the Hong Kong in Master Xian Jie's temple in Hong Kong, thầy đến chùa của ngài Thánh Nhất ở Hong Kong đó, it's on the mountain. It's called Jewel Forest Mountain, tên là Bảo Yến Sư, tên là Bảo Lâm Tử, ở trên núi. And therefore, when they sit in the evening for an hour or two, I don't remember anymore, they would cover themselves with some kind of blankets or towels. Khi họ ngồi thiền như vậy thì các thầy, các cô họ một tiếng, 2 tiếng không nhớ, thì mà họ đắp chăn hoặc là họ đắp lên cái khăn lông. So when you meditate at home, do make sure that the legs are well covered as well. Như quý vị thiền ở nhà nhớ cái chân giữ cái chân cho nó ấm. Why is that? Because it's help prevent you from developing arthritis when you get older. Tại cái chân mà giữ không ấm nó dễ sau khi về không tốt. Okay. All right. Actually, it's better to meditate when it's cold. Thì ra cái thời tiết nó lạnh như vậy thì nó thuận tiện cho cái việc tu hành thiền, tu luyện thiền hơn. Because you naturally warm yourself up as you increase your concentration. Excuse me. Tại vì khi quý vị thiền, tự động cái cơ thể quý vị nó sẽ nóng lên. Okay. The more you can concentrate, okay, the quicker you warm up your body. Càng biết có cái sức chú ý nó càng mạnh chừng nào thì cơ thể quý vị nó càng nóng chừng này. Is it clear? For example, you sit outside. Okay, inside is warmer and outside is cooler and windier, and there's a wind chill factor as well. So you have to be careful. Most of you would then put on another layer. Am I correct? Okay. Những cái gì trong nhà đó thì trời ẩm thì còn ấm hơn, rồi muốn phải ra ngoài khỏi nhà thì trời nó lạnh hơn, không khí lạnh hơn, còn có gió nữa. Thành đa số quý vị sẽ mặc cái áo, thêm cái áo nữa. Okay. Another way to put on a layer without putting on a layer, một cách khác mà có thể mặc thêm một lớp áo mà không cần mặc lớp áo, is that when you walk outside, you concentrate on it. That's your additional layer, your additional invisible layer. This is why a lot of people show off by walking outside without any additional layers, because they know how to do it. That's their secret. Những cái gì của người tu thiền đó, là khi ta ra ngoài, trời lạnh, ta ra ngoài như vậy, ta không mặc thêm áo gì hết. Tại sao vậy? Ta chỉ cần chú tâm nhiều hơn về cái năng lượng, tự động cơ thể mình sẽ nóng, ta không cần mặc thêm áo. Does it make sense to you? I wouldn't try this at home, okay? And don't sue me, please. But if you have some skills, you can be inside and outside, and without being horribly worried about the change in temperature, as long as you're aware and you pay attention. Okay. So try it and see for yourself. You don't need any additional layer at all. Cái vị thử đi qua. Nếu có tí công phu thiền, tự động cái vị ra ngoài không cần mặc thêm áo. Alright. Also today we're starting a new feature where we allow the residents here, or the people who wish to contribute to the Dharma talk, to come up and talk. We start out with allowing our new Swami Xian Jie, only because he has always been interested in speaking Dharma in order to help others. We see about that. Bây giờ buổi đầu tuần này chúng ta có cái mục mới là cho phép những cái vị muốn nói pháp thì lên nói pháp. Thì người đầu tiên hết người cô bay đầu tiên hết tuần này ông chú Xian Jie hiền giới. Tại sao như vậy? Tại vì cái ông này ông trước giờ ông rất thích nói pháp để mà giúp người khác cứu nhân độ thế. Thì không biết cứu nhân độ thế được hay không thì đừng qua thử ra sao. Okay. This is also the tradition that I learned from my master, Venerable Xian Jie. Đây là cái truyền thống mà thầy cũng tiếp theo của các huấn luyện của vị ân sư của thầy YongHua. In that, that's how I started too. Thầy Đức cũng như vậy. I became a novice monk. I was a novice monk for 4 years, over 4 years. Thầy làm sa di hơn 4 năm. And I hated it, of course. All 4 years, I never liked it. Hơn 4 năm thầy không thích như nào. I'm still amazed at how I could survive so long, considering how, just like most of you, have this sense of entitlement, meaning that if I'm a Swami and a novice monk, therefore I must be entitled to something, must be worth my while. But let me assure you, past the first 4 months of my career, my professional career, it was not worth it at all. Thì thầy nhớ là hồi đó mà làm thầy Di là 4 năm là 4 năm cực khổ, không sung sướng gì hết, mà không thích gì nhiều, cũng hơi lạ là mình có thể sống sót lâu như vậy. Tại vì đa số cái quý vị tư tưởng mình xứng đáng được cái gì đó, thành mình sống cuộc đời như vậy, có gì vui vẻ, cái gì sung sướng mình mới sống được. Đâu không biết tại sao I always met with obstructions and disappointments and confusions, and when I meditated I had problems and I asked around, no one would help me, and so it was rather frustrating for years. Tu 4 năm đầu rất là bực tức nhiều. I talk about frustration, afflictions later. We don't have a chance. Bàn về cái phiền não, cái bực dọc sau thì mình lại có thời gian. But we were, quotes, forced to speak Dharma. He just saying, okay, come up and speak Dharma. Or he say, when that's a time slot, come up and speak Dharma. Lúc đó là nhiều khi là bị bắt nên nói pháp. And there's no agenda, không có một cái chương trình gì hết. Okay. It's called spontaneous Dharma speaking. Thành nói pháp nói tự nhiên. Okay. There's no rehearsal, không có ấy. But sometimes you're surprised. In fact, there are times where every week I had to speak Dharma twice because the headman wasn't there, so actually I had to speak Dharma something like 4 times a week. Nhiều khi cái vị thầy ở chùa đó không có mặt luôn nè, ông đi đâu chuyên môn đi vắng, thành ra mỗi tuần thầy phải nói pháp cho tới 4 lần, half an hour weeknights, 2 weeknights, and then an hour on Saturday, an hour on Sunday. So you're talking about 3 hours. So I had plenty of training, believe me. And I'm still amazed at how come I still can talk like this, talk a lot of nonsense without speaking, without saying anything. And so thầy lúc nhớ là ở Xian Jie là bà bị nói pháp, và thầy có thầy trụ trì không có mặt, trên đường vắng mặt, thành ban đêm mỗi tuần phải nói chuyện nửa tiếng một đêm, 2 lần, tức là 1 tiếng trong tuần, rồi cuối tuần phải nói pháp 1 tiếng một ngày thứ Bảy, 1 tiếng một ngày thứ Chủ nhật, tức là tuần nói pháp 3 tiếng. On top of it, before they told us to speak Dharma, they reminded us that you have to be very careful. You speak the wrong Dharma, you'll be in very big trouble. You can fall to the house, you become an animal. Còn hơn nữa, trước khi mà nói pháp, họ nhắc chúng tôi rằng là nếu như nó phát trật là sẽ có nhiều vấn đề, và có thể bị đọa địa ngục hoặc là thành súc sanh. So with that introduction, why don't we welcome Xian Jie and see what he has to offer. Be careful, and it's not, we don't have to only be just him, but any of you who wish to speak Dharma, you can request for the chance and opportunity to speak Dharma. All right, please feel free. The objective is to learn from each other and to share the knowledge. It's not about being right or wrong. All right? Hopefully you're right more often than you're wrong. And because if you're wrong, you will be in big trouble. Just keep that in mind. That's all. Keep you humble.
the opportunity to be up here. Thank you, Shifu. And yeah, it's a little daunting to try to sit here and say something, although, I mean, as Shifu said, I've always kind of had the aspiration to be able to help people with the Dharma. I've spoken a little bit in the context of the previous Zen center that I was at, but it was quite different there because I felt, I mean, at the time the teachings were just a little, I mean, the level of understanding wasn't quite as high, and the bar for what we're aiming towards wasn't as high, so it was a little more manageable to speak in that context. But here it's quite a bit more daunting because there's so much, you know, these really high levels that we talk about, and so being nowhere near there feels kind of quite difficult to sit here and try to say something. But
can you stop? We need to translate the Vietnamese.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I translate for you for now until we find someone who would like to translate for you. Nói là lúc trước cảm ơn thầy đã cho phép và nói pháp. Trước giờ cũng có cái nguyện vọng như vậy là muốn dùng Phật pháp, giảng pháp để giúp người ta, giúp người khác. Lúc trước đã từng giảng pháp, ông này lúc trước ông được làm lãnh đạo của cái nhóm Zen Center ở Long Beach và từng nói pháp mỗi cuối tuần như vậy. Nhưng điều hồi đó cái trình độ nó khác, từng pháp nó khác, mục tiêu nó khác. Bây giờ mục tiêu này nó trình độ nó cao hơn, và nhất là những cái người mà thường xuyên ở đây trình độ nó cao hơn, thành ra ông hơi gì đó rụt rè một tí. All right.
So, but I thought, at any rate, probably the safest thing to do is to try to stay close to, you know, my own experience in terms of what I've been through, and just talk about kind of sort of on the level of the things that I'm comfortable speaking about. And so I thought I could start off initially just sort of talk a little bit about sort of what I've been through or how I came to the practice. Not necessarily because, you know, my path is that incredibly interesting, but at least it's what I'm familiar with, and also then that way I'd like to ultimately be able to address people's concerns, where they're coming from or where they have questions. But if I can share a little bit about where I've been, then people may be able to also, you know where I'm coming from or ask me questions about things that I've been through or my experience. So it'll probably keep it pretty simple, and I think it's just supposed to be a few minutes. Anyways.
Yeah, you used the 5 already. Very good.
Okay. Do you want to translate that?
Yeah, thầy nói, thầy Hiền Giới, thầy nói là thầy không biết nói gì nhiều. Thì lúc đầu ngày hôm nay muốn nói bàn về những cái kinh nghiệm cá nhân của thầy.
So, well, I guess I'll just start with how I came to this practice, how I came to the Dharma, which was initially through at a college in freshman. My first semester, I just became really depressed, kind of out of the blue, and because things were basically going very well. It was actually kind of like a high point in my life prior to that, and then it was sort of after that, just the kind of the drop off, and then the transition to college, and somehow just triggered this pretty serious depression. And then it was in going through that experience that I kind of had to reevaluate the way I was looking at things and living my life, and came to see, before I found Buddhism, through sort of cognitive therapy, just started to see how it's actually a lot, my thought processes, my thinking that was causing this depression and causing me to feel, you know, completely worthless and like I shouldn't be alive, there's no sense to be here. But it's just because of these thought patterns that were, you know, pretty ingrained deeply, but they kind of
tiên, rất là có nhìn có tương lai sáng lạc, có nhiều triển vọng, nhưng đều bỗng nhiên phát giác là mình bị có cái bệnh chán đời, rồi thành ra phải tìm cái phương pháp để mà đối trị nó. Mình rất là bỗng nhiên mới khám phá ra vì cái tư tưởng, cái cách suy nghĩ đó, cái tạp khí của cách suy nghĩ đó, nó tạo cái sự chán đời, cái depression rất là nặng nề, rất là trầm trọng. Phải cần nhìn vào cái Phật giáo để đối trị.
So once I started to get better, and right on the same time I discovered Buddhism, and through taking I guess a class at first and just doing some reading. So it kind of, as I started to get better, and then I studied Buddhism, and it helped me in my recovery, and it just seemed to be saying a lot of the same things I had to realize already about how I was sort of creating my reality out of my thoughts, and how my, the suffering was caused by the way I was attaching to things. In particular, having this idea that, I had to be great, I had to be excellent, I had to be better than everyone else at the things that I did. And always I was pretty good at things, did well in school and whatnot. But somehow, even though fundamentally nothing changed about me, my perspective during that time just flipped. And I suddenly just started to look at how everybody else was like accomplishing all these things. And I would focus on how, oh, look at all these things that they're doing. They're doing, oh, I can't do all that. They're doing so much better than me. And it just like turned this completely, turned into this downward spiral that the more negative you think, then the less I'm able to do. And then the more I use that as evidence that, oh, well, really I'm worthless because look, I can't do anything. These people are doing so much more. So that was kind of a lot of the storyline centered around that. But then Buddhism, once I started to learn about Buddhism, was obviously going, there were a lot more depth to the teachings than the cognitive therapy approach. So from there I just wanted to start learning more and getting into the practice of it.
Thì ban đầu thấy có cái khuynh hướng là muốn hơn người ta, muốn giỏi hơn người ta, nhưng đều bắt đầu so sánh với người khác, học trò khác mới khám phá là người ta giỏi hơn mình nhiều, ta có những cái thành tựu lớn lao hơn mình nhiều, có thể làm những chuyện mà mình có thể làm được. Thành đó là cái tư tưởng nó khiến cứ sinh bị mông lung thêm, và nó thành ra sinh ra bệnh chán đời, thành nó phải đi dùng cognitive therapy để mà chữa nó. Nhưng nếu sau này từ khám phá ra cái phần pháp nó còn thâm sâu hơn, là có cái cách chữa của tâm lý học đó, và theo đó tu thì thấy nó có ảnh hưởng rất là tốt cho cái bệnh chán này. I think you practically use up your time. All right. So anything you'd like to add before we close up and go to lunch?
Yeah, I guess just briefly to tie it together. That was about 12 years ago, and then there's obviously there's still a good deal of ups and downs, even as I started practicing. But I've really felt like the Dharma has helped me through a lot of that, and then more recently in the last, because that was about 12 years ago, and then the last over maybe almost 3 years since I first started coming here, and then I left, and then about 2 years, I think, been back again for 2 years here, and then just really felt a very profound sense of improvement with this particular Dharma and these teachings from Master Hua and Master YongHua. And so I've actually, just to briefly put it into context, after the depression, I basically was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, so there were some like ups and downs, and you kind of have these strange mood swings, but this practice has really been able to help stabilize me and feel a lot more grounded, and it has been able to go off of all of these medications that I was told I would have to take these for the rest of my life and all that. So basically, I found this practice very effective and very helpful. that's, I guess, just a brief introduction.
Rồi tu Phật giáo thì theo cái thiền theo Phật giáo thì tiến bộ rất là nhiều. Thì nhất là trong đó là 12 năm trước, rồi nhất là 3 năm trước là thầy mình quen với cái chùa với thầy, xong rồi theo tu trong 2 năm rồi tu gắt gao hơn thì thấy tiến bộ rất là nhiều. Và cái thì ra của mình biến chuyển là mình là manic depression, lúc đó thì nghĩ là mình là thượng đế, cái lúc là nghĩ mình là không xứng, mình là con muội. Thành ra nó có cái sự cực đoan, nó rất là lớn như vậy. Rất nhiều người bị bệnh như vậy, không có phá rằng là giờ tu như vậy để cái bệnh đó nó bình thường hóa lại. Và ngay bây giờ mình cần uống thuốc mà sống bình thường. Okay. All right, thank you. Very good.
Thank you.
Now, typically, when a lay person speaks, you should usually applaud. But in our temple, we don't applaud because it's noisy. But it's good. Okay. Anyone has any question for Venerable Xian Jie? Có cái muốn hỏi gì, có thắc mắc gì muốn hỏi thầy Hiền Giới không? No questions? Yes, Danny.
Can you recall a specific moment that you reached a significant milestone with smoothing things out for yourself?
The question is, you see, I'm being accused of not repeating the questions, and the reason I don't repeat the questions is because if I repeat the questions, then I lose my spontaneity. I only respond to the questions, to the questioner, and to the audience. So if I have to repeat, it disrupts my chain of thought and makes me less spontaneous. And so I really struggle with that. Since today I'm only translating and I'm not responding, so I can repeat the questions. Okay. So the question is, can you pinpoint the specific time point where you actually experience significant change? Is what the question is about, right? Is it fair to paraphrase it like that? What is the turning point?
That's correct.
Okay. Từ trước giờ thầy trò thầy có khuyên yêu cầu thầy lặp lại câu hỏi, nhưng thầy cứ quên lặp lại câu hỏi rồi, tại vì cách thầy nói pháp là thầy quý vị hỏi sao thầy phản ứng rồi, thầy không có suy nghĩ gì hết. Nếu như bắt thầy mà lặp lại câu hỏi thì nó thiếu cái tự nhiên, bắt thầy cũng đọc về suy nghĩ, thầy cứ quên lặp lại câu hỏi này. Ngày hôm nay là câu hỏi phải cho thầy, thì thầy sẽ lặp lại câu hỏi cho đàng hoàng. Câu hỏi ngày hôm nay là thầy Hiền Giới có nhớ cái giây lúc mà cái bình tình nó biến đổi không, nó cái tình hình nó hoàn toàn nó chuyển đổi đó.
Well, in part, it's always kind of a gradual process. So it's a bit hard to isolate like one, say, particular point. Like there's, for instance, I can try to give some concrete examples that at a certain point I actually had some, because I was meditating for anyway, let me put it in context a little bit first though.
See exactly, excuse me for interrupting. You see, he's thinking. You see that he's organizing verbally his thoughts. Okay? And that's why you see he keeps on swapping back and forth, and it's clear that he's still thinking and formulating his answer. That's a difference. Okay? And with practice, he'll learn not to do that. Do less less of that because it's so obvious right now. But that's what he does. He thinks constantly. This is how you folks function. You are constantly formulating your thoughts in a way that's more is better accepted by the audience. Am I correct? Okay. So that's your attachment.
Would it be fair to say that his breathing is too shallow?
Yeah, he's a little bit nervous as well. Yeah. There's two things. Of course he's nervous. You know.
I guess what
I assure you, Danny, if you find yourself sitting here and right behind you there's someone else who speaks Dharma better than you, it's a little bit of a pressure. Okay.
Sure, I would think that.
At least he thinks as the other person speaks Dharma better than he does. It's a little bit of pressure, and then also his habit, energies, and he thinks too much.
Would it be fair to say that a remedy for this would be to breathe deeper, take proper, more appropriate breaths?
No, then you're still thinking. The better thing is just to go back to your navel and relax and think less. Okay. That is just, I would do that. It's a good suggestion. I would do that if I weren't speaking. For example, let's say you sit next to him. This is what happened to us. They line us up. They say, you first, then you next, and you next, you next. So the first person speaks, and he ran away. He would run away right away. And the rest of us would have to sit next to him, being scrutinized because you have a big Buddha hall here, and 60 people, 100 people watching you, every single thing you do. And they get bored of looking at the speaker, now they look at you, and the next person, and see what happens. So people always wonder, they scan you. Okay. So naturally, your body tenses up as you wait for your turn. That's when you concentrate on your breathing. Okay. When you're speaking and you concentrate on your breathing, then your mind is distracted.
Isn't it because you mentioned previously that you were nervous for 4 years,
Yeah.
and then you overcome. So just in my opinion, I think the only resolution for that is you just keep practicing, have that in mind, right?
Yeah.
Or over the time.
Yeah. You just become aware of your breathing, your shortness of breathing, and say, oh, I relax. That's all you should do. Just relax. And so you become aware, and you're nervous, you're tense. Just relax. Or I say, I am nervous. Okay. And relax. That's all you do. If you think about your nervousness and you say, oh my God, what's going on? Oh boy, this is not good. If you think about that, it's worse. You only need to be aware of it and let go. Try to let go, not think about it. And naturally it takes care of itself.
Can I share something before I go?
Sure.
For my hobby, I go dance salsa, right? And I noticed something before when people come and
What do you dance?
Salsa.
Salsa. Oh yeah, salsa. Yes. I like that
It's
too.
kind of weird because I danced for 10 years. Finally, I have a realization that I have never known before for the past 10 years. I never thought that I
Through
would...
dancing salsa?
Huh?
Really? You have realization?
Huh?
Wow, this is cool.
I think you do something for more than 10 years, you always realize something if you try. And, I think dancing is even more difficult because it's kind of make your ego to be stronger at some point because it's something to show.
Yeah.
And it's
Show
something to show the aesthetic appearance of it. So you always constantly to think, how do I view to others, or how do I look to others? Do I look nice? Am I doing it right? So it's very challenging to to relax and, you know, just enjoy the moment of the actual dance. So after 10 years, I heard from time to time the dancing partner say, "You're kind of too nervous, you gotta relax." And I thought I was nervous. I was like, what is he talking about? And then very recently when I started to meditate, I'm like, okay, fuck this, I'm gonna have fun. And then the dance was so much better, and it was like, I have never danced like that before. And then I started to realize I was actually nervous and I wasn't even aware of it.
But so the realization, your realization comes from meditation, not from dancing. I'm pointing it out to you.
No, but the dancing, it was kind of like I guess it's kind of like media. If I wasn't doing any action, you know, you wouldn't get the realization, right?
Yes, no, it's not quite that. When you meditate, you have these revelations of the things you do during the day, or your worries, naturally. Okay. If you didn't meditate, you wouldn't have these revelations at all. The revelations come because why? Xian Jie. Why realizations when you meditate? Why is it?
Well, maybe there's less mental processing, less thinking.
When you're calm.
Going on.
When you're calm, then you see clearly. That's as simple as that. You have to be calm. Your mind has to be calm before you can see things properly. Okay? So it doesn't have to be like a formal meditation. Good enough during the day, and you concentrate on your breathing, or you focus in on, let's say, what you're reading. Let's say, you're like reading a sutra, or reciting a mantra, or reciting Buddha's name. At that moment, when your mind is calm enough, you have these revelations, these aha moments. This is what the psychologists, or I learned about that aha term from Mr. Jack Welch. For those of you who are into business, Jack Welch, the famous CEO, ex-GE CEO, okay, who's now rogue because I think he's become arrogant through his success, recognition. But the aha moment, the people talk about the aha moment, they don't teach you why it happened or how to get there. You notice that? Anyway, it is from through meditation. All right, it's not the repetition of doing something. It's about when your mind is still, is when you have these aha instance. Okay. All right. So I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you agree with that, Xian Jie?
Yes, I guess.
Oh, exactly. You can see he's speaking Dharma too. All right. Going back to the question.
Yeah, I forgot. What was the question about again?
The question is, you said that you've made progress as far as depression and bipolarness, and I was asking if you recall a time or an instance that you reached a milestone from.
What he's referring to, excuse me interrupting, what he's referring to is that when you find yourself, let's say, liberated from in that moment where you reach a certain level of liberation and retaining self-control, right?
That's correct.
Because the clinician and the researcher would like to know that, right? To pinpoint that time. But then they can be in a better position to dissect it, right?
Yeah, like when were you no longer stuck?
Okay, very good. See? That's how you should phrase it in Chan. Okay. direct and plain. All right.
I mean, the most noticeable thing is just like as I'm practicing more and especially living here, you know, there's just an absence of those kind of states, like the very depressive states or manic states. So I just don't go into those kind of states; they don't occur. But there's like another specific thing I could pinpoint that say, because the doctors, one of the things they told me at a certain point was that I need to just sleep enough, and that they're just stressing the importance of getting 8 or 9 hours of sleep.
8 or 9 hours.
and so initially
I know that boy sleeps less than 8 or 9 hours a night. Am I correct, boy? You see?
I mean, they don't necessarily say, 8 hours is kind of what people say these days, but 8 or 9 hours was what I was often sleeping anyways. But the doctors just said, you know, sleep enough, which usually means 7 to 9 hours, or, I guess they say. But so initially when I was coming here, and then we were taking the trips up to San Jose, and there were times of just getting a lot less sleep, and so I would get kind of worried about that, and because...
So he would double up on the medication, right?
No, I didn't do that, but I just get a little worried about it. I mean, it was prior to that, earlier in my life, I used to, you know, in college, not sleep all night and write papers, or at the Zen Center, I would do, you know, sit during the intensive. We did also have retreats, so I would sometimes sit all night or most of the night. But then, because things got a bit worse in 2006, about 6 years ago, it was actually, because it happened at a meditation retreat, that I kind of got the Huato retreat, or the Chan retreat, sort of pushed me over the edge. And then after that, the doctors were like, well, you know, you shouldn't do that anymore.
Huato retreat? Push you over the edge?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. What were you doing? What Huato were you doing? Let's make sure we don't ever do this Huato.
First I was using, it's kind of a bizarre word anyways, who is dragging this corpse around?
Okay, say it again, I'm sorry.
Who is dragging this corpse around?
And then what? And once you
yourself
study
as
on
a
the
corpse.
Huato, that was a turning point.
Well, but then during that retreat though, I kind of started to get some difficulty, and then just switched to what is Wu.
Nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
Okay. Now let me translate this because the Vietnamese need to learn about this too. Nó là khó mà nhớ lúc nào đều là 2006 đó, ở cái chùa Zen đó, chùa đó Nhật đó, tu cái công án của cái tham tọa đầu. Thì tham tọa đầu đó là ai đang lấy cái xác này, rồi sau nó đổi thành là vô, cái chữ vô, rồi vì làm tham tọa đầu nên ông nổi đi cuối cùng. Okay. I don't know why. I can see who's dragging this corpse has a bad effect on you. I don't understand why Wu would have an effect on you.
Well, of course, it was a lot of different things.
Because if I meditate on who's dragging this corpse, I will be depressed. I can see that. You agree? Who's dragging this corpse? Sound morbid. Anyway, so the continue.
Well, so I was going into that as the background of why I was so concerned about sleep, because after that, one of the things they said was, because during the retreat we didn't sleep much, and you know, it's sort of like, it's supposed to be an intense pressure cooker when you do these Huato retreats. But so the doctors are like, well, you just can't do that anymore, and you need to sleep enough, and you need to take all these drugs all the time and all that. So what the reason I guess got to that was because when I, came here, initially I was more worried about like sleep and all that, and so I could see a real distinct sense of progress when I could start to sleep less. It's just a concrete thing, and still feel fine, or still be feeling better than I was before, even though I was sleeping much less at times. And there were other instances where I noticed that sleeping less would start to trigger kind of abnormal states or undesirable states, so that didn't happen anymore. So to me, I guess that's a sign that there's more going on here. There's the container sort of the place of practice, the type of practice that we're doing, the having the proper guidance and the right methods made it possible, I feel, for me to then do a lot of things that previously in the other context were giving me trouble.
Let me translate that. Well, comment on that for your sake. You might remember. Nói là thầy nói là cái trước mà lúc là cái thiền thất mà bên Chủ Nhật đó họ dùng tham trà đầu đó thì ông ngồi cùng nên là tại vì gặp tới khám bác sĩ mới nói là ông thiếu ngủ, không được bởi ngủ một ngày phải ngủ từ 7 giờ đến 9 giờ, chứ không thiếu ngủ nó rất nguy hiểm, thành ra ông không dám nữa. Thì sau này ông tới chùa này ở thì ông thấy là ngủ ít hơn, đi hành pháp hay Xian Jie đó ngủ rất ít mà chả sao hết, làm việc cả ngày hồi hộp cả ngày không sao hết, về đây làm việc hồi hộp cả ngày, ngủ ít nữa, ăn ít nữa mà cũng không sao hết. Thành ra ông thấy lúc đầu mới hiểu rằng là cái phương pháp tu luyện với cái môi trường, cái sự hướng dẫn quan trọng. Lúc đầu phát làm tin là thấy là mình ngủ ít hơn, ngược lại cái lời bác sĩ mà người bác sĩ mấy cái sự hiểu biết thông thường người ta cũng có đó mà không sao hết, mà thiệt ra là có tiến bộ. Yes.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the gist of what you're saying is that you change your environment, and the external factors remedy the symptoms. Is that?
Well, it's not just the environment; it's the types of practices that I'm doing here too. But the environment, I think, is part of it as well.
Because what I wonder, if I may, I think the point, and I'm a relatively new student, but the point of what we're trying to do is, from our core, from our true being, we're trying to let that out. And I'm hearing that you're taking things, you've changed the external, and the way that gets internalized has remedied or quieted the symptoms, but not remedied the cause. It just seems as though Thomas is hiding in there somewhere, and Thomas is trying to deflect and worry about the external rather than just becoming the Buddha nature and just coming out and being yourself. Maybe this is the same thing that leads to the overthinking or the self-editing.
It's not that. You guys are analyzing it wrong. Your analysis is way off target. And this is what the analysts and when you start analyzing, trying to analyze, that's when you go wrong on a tangent. You don't realize it. Okay. It makes sense the way it sounds, but actually it's nonsense. Okay. You see why I can't repeat it? If I repeat it, I have to think about what did he say, and then am I including everything he just said? That's why I find myself very different. I don't like to repeat questions because it makes me think. And then when I think about that, I can't give you the answer.
Can I rephrase the question then?
No, you can't. Go ahead. Let him rephrase it before he forgets.
It seems as though that you're taking from the external to the internal to create these positive changes rather than from the internal and releasing.
Danny, quit. Quit.
Nice
Just
try.
quit.
Nice try.
Just
Yes.
quit.
Yes.
I forgot after I hear
See, it has to be spontaneous. Yeah.
because I try to follow his thoughts and it just not I do that all the time too.
Yeah.
I get lost. Like
It's because you don't know why it happened. You're theorizing why it happened, but you don't know what really happened. And you really don't know how to fix the problem either. This is the problem. See, the Buddha, he knows how to fix the problem. He knows what the problem is. Okay? You guys don't know what the problem is. So what you do is searching. You groping in the dark how to fix it. You have a problem, you don't know what's the root cause of this problem. Therefore, if you cannot see your enemy eye to eye, then you have to search. You keep on shooting. Like when I was younger, it was something like the boys used to, at least us, we used to shoot like submarines and naval fleet, right? A5, J3, N4, and you try to
Battleship.
Battleship,
yeah,
thank you.
Battleship.
There you go. I used to do that a lot. I was very good at that for a while. You see, so you have to keep on searching, right? You have to keep on testing, and that's why you waste a lot of time. Even if you have a hit, you don't even know what you're hitting, okay? And you run into a lot of problems. This is what the worldly knowledge, medical knowledge, and psychological knowledge can be useful. At the same time, it can be misleading. You don't know what you're dealing with. Okay? You don't know how to deal with it. So that's a problem. So that's why the specialist starts theorizing like he does. Like you do, like all you tend to do because you need to demonstrate to your boss and you're working at it. Right? So you say, boss, this is what you pay me every day to do. Think and make progress. Make some kind of, do something to progress towards a solution. You're under time and money pressure. And therefore, you keep on groping at straws and you don't know what you're doing practically. And this is where the academia and the researchers get into trouble because they're basing their progress on unsteady grounds. Okay? What you sounded made sense. Okay? But it's nonsense. And you keep on dwelling on it, you keep on building on top of it, eventually it will crumble. It will make you confused and depressed. Yes?
Can I just share something? I had a food eating disorder for such a long time. And when I started to meditate, I realized what you just said. I've been searching how to solve the problem outside. Do I need to go to more exercise? Am I having a problem with, diet myself? Should I cut the sugar? So much thoughts. Like it's like a cloud of thoughts.
Yeah.
You get more frustrated and you're worrying even more because you thought too much. And then when I started to meditate, it's like, every single person on the earth already know how to eat healthy, how to keep in shape. It's just because you think too much, you're so frustrated, you're so clouded that you overeat or you eat too little to get sick. And then you keep searching for expertise or advice and they tell you, okay, eat this or take this medication or go to the gym. It's all waste of time and effort. And I think the answer is inside. So.
That's true. For that, I will make a comment right away because it's important for you to understand this. Okay? The reason that meditation is very helpful for you, for your case, for the people who are concerned about their weight, okay, is for two reasons. Number one, okay, you develop insights like that. you're able to recognize the triggers. What triggers you to eat. And that's an aha moment. Remember? The aha moment, aha, that's why I have this urge to eat. Unless you cannot, if you stop eating, then naturally you lose weight, right? It's natural. It's all there is to it. It's just you can't stop. And when this urge to eat, you have to recognize the trigger moment, the very moment, like what Danny's talking about. When there's a trigger inside of you somewhere that says eat, and you grab something and put it in your mouth. Or in the boy's case, in his mother, is that they grab a drink, a sugar drink, and suck at the straw. Okay, there's a trigger. The meditation will help you spot that trigger, that moment. Does it make sense? You have to do that yourself. You have to spot your own personal triggers. So far, so good? And meditation, when your mind is calm, and the mind calms down, that's when you spot, as you meditate, naturally all these things happen, those thoughts arise, and there's a replay, there's a playback, right, of what happened, that moments during the day, or moments are the past moments. And suddenly when you have these replays, these playbacks of moments, and suddenly as you meditate, and you say, aha, that's it, that's my trigger. That's why meditation is critical for your diet, or for your weight control. Okay. Number 2, once you spot those triggers, then meditation enables you to resist the temptation. Once you spot that, you say, okay, I have the urge of eating when I am what? Unhappy. When I am dissatisfied. I don't know about you, that's what I do. When I'm unhappy, I say grab something and eat. I remember one of the ladies I knew, every time she's depressed, you see her, you don't see her. She would hide somewhere and take, let's say, a box of cereals and go to feel better. This is comfort food. Okay? So you recognize those moments, and she does it constantly, without knowing, without realizing. Okay? So you recognize those triggers, and then the second thing about meditation is it enables you to have this strength of will, the willpower to resist doing that until that moment, that moment when you feel bad about yourself goes away. For example, okay, you resist the temptation to act on your trigger, then you say. I don't know how we got into dieting and stuff like that. But all the pills and the so-called approaches in weight control cannot be more effective than what I just described to you. If you take pills, okay, all it does is that it suppresses the symptoms. That's why you can't see those triggers anymore. You become dependent on the diet, on the pills, on someone else, on the Weight Watchers, on your friends. Okay. But the meditation enables you to be in control, to retain control, by becoming aware of those triggers. Okay? Anyway, going back to the comment about, last comment about, and we need to go, it's lunchtime already. your comment about inner outer has a good basis, but that's as far as it goes. But when you go further and try to dissect it, you don't know how to dissect it. That's how you get into trouble. It's not how it happens. You cannot find the trigger, and you don't know how to resolve those triggers. In conclusion, let me tell you by tying it up for you, what he just said here that relates back to the manic depression, working on that. Number one, okay, the environment is very important, as he found out. The environment is critical. Okay? Just like when you meditate, trust me, you meditate the right place, it's much better off. Agreed? Okay? It's obvious, isn't it? Okay. Number two, the methodology is very important. Okay. You use the wrong method. It's also is not very effective. Number three, even more critical, is the guidance.
See the last one again, I'm sorry.
The guidance. Okay? If you don't have the proper guidance, you will not be connected. For example, when this place where he was at, and was doing the Xian Jie, they're doing the Huatou, my response is, they have no business practicing the Huatou. They can't handle the Huatou. Not at his state, not at his level. It's too premature, it's way premature to get into the Huatou. Okay, and then look at the environment is wrong. The Huatou requires a very strict environment. Number two, who's dragging this corpse is the wrong Huatou. Clearly, okay, wrong methodology. Okay. And then second, after a while, he switched to Wu, meaning nothing, then it compounds his confusion from the first Huatou. Wrong methodology. And why all of that? Because the guidance is not there. That's why he got into trouble. All right. I'm not going to translate it into Vietnamese. Let's go to lunch.
I was going to just say one other brief thing.
Sure.
Just briefly in response to kind of your first question about milestones of when I saw myself get better. Just generally speaking, the simplest thing I think is just that in being here, I just see myself, without being able to get off medications and feel a lot better than I ever have before, really, and not have a recurrence of any of the sort of problematic, depressive, or manic symptoms. So,
in fact, he used to go to the Zen center and stay there for months, right?
Yeah, right up there
As well, so you have the chance to compare the difference in the environment. Okay. The environment makes a big difference, especially for these psychological disorders. Big difference. When you have problems like that, I wouldn't move anywhere near the cemetery for them. That's because I've seen a lot of Chinese people stay in the cemeteries, and after staying there for a year because they can't afford the rent or no temple will take them, and they come to our temple and say, these guys are crazy. It's not a good environment for most people. And it's funny that in Buddhism, the monks are encouraged to go to cemeteries for training. with under supervision. It's not like these idiot monks that say, okay, see, the Buddha says we should go to the cemetery, so why don't we go to the cemetery and stay there? Okay? When we send people out to the cemetery for training, it's under supervision. The guidance, send the guidance. Okay? They receive protection, the guidance. And these monks then, they say, okay, see, if the Buddha says so, therefore I should do it because the Buddha says so. And then after a while, cookie. How do you say it in English? Huh? The nurse, what do you call these crazy people?
Psychosis. Little psychotics.
Psychotics? Not quite. This is crazy.
Well,
they just think that they're right. Just like the other day, that Korean nun who stays, and she came, and everything she says, she really believes she's right. It's a mental disorder. When she was here about 3 or 4 years ago, she was fine. She was very good. She claimed she exclaimed she felt very good, and she was doing well. And she left, and she came back about. She disappeared for 1.5 years or so. She came back the other last month and asked to come back, and she started, and then she's deranged. I could use that word. You without the proper methodology, without the proper environment, particularly without the proper guidance, because listen, she came in and she spent time with him and everyone else, and I saw her and said, this woman is in trouble, but it's nothing I can do. It's not my business. Okay? She thinks she knows it all. And she doesn't realize that she's in big trouble. Okay? The guidance is critical. Because it says you shouldn't do that. You stop looking. Don't go there. You're wasting time. Otherwise, you can spend the rest of the time trying to research it and you get nowhere. All right? Good talk. Thank you. Let's go to lunch.